What's up, guys? Welcome to Demo with Mo. I'm your host, Monique Simmons. We'll be discussing dating, engaged, and married objectives from a young Christian's perspective. Are you guys ready? Let's dive in.
Hey, what's up, guys? Welcome to a new episode of Demo with Mo. I am your host, Monique Simmons. And today we are going to be discussing budget and finances. And today I have a special guest joining me. Born and raised in Jackson, Mississippi, Miss Breonna is a proud graduate of I Love Jackson State University, where she earned a coveted bachelor's and master's degree in accounting. This ultimately led her to achieve opportunities in the industry for some of the largest financial and accounting firms in the world, such as JPMorgan Chase Bank and Deloitte. These opportunities have given Breonna the chance to expand upon her natural anointing for personal finance and budgeting. Growing up, she found herself having a passion for saving money and budgeting, which ultimately led to her having the position where she is today as a tax associate at a local CPA and business advisory firm. Outside of work, she also participates as a proud assistant accountant at her church as well. Breonna believes that personal finances are essential in building opportunities for yourself to grow, and is excited to share her experiences with everyone interested in learning. I introduce to you Miss Breonna Deere. Thank you so much for joining me today, Bree. I appreciate it.
No, thank you so much for having me. Excited to be on and chatting with you today.
Awesome. Thank you, thank you, thank you. And for those of you who are listening, her name is Breonna, but I do call her Bree for short. She goes by Bree for short. Breonna and we are church members. We go to church together. So I love Bree. I love Bree. Bree, as we jump into our conversation for today, I usually start off the conversation with my guests with just a little icebreaker, nothing too difficult. What is one funny or unique thing most people may not know about you?
Funny or unique thing?
Mm-hmm.
That's a little tough. Funny or unique?
Mm-hmm.
I don't know. I would say I am goofy. I am a goofy person. I love to laugh.
Okay.
Yeah, I love to laugh. If something like is really funny, I'm the one like it I'll be laughing like nonstop. If it's really funny, I'm really naturally like a goofy person.
Okay, that is good to know. Okay, you are goofy. Okay, so our first question here to jump into our conversation about budgets and finances. What was your experience on finances growing up? Like, were you taught about them? Was it like a stressful topic in your house growing up? Was it something that wasn't discussed? Was it like on the hush hush? Was it something just the adults handled? Were you guys involved in it as kids? Like, what was your experience around the subject of finances when you were growing up?
So my experience growing up, we didn't necessarily have a discussion about it. So I actually learned this like on my own. So I kind of more so like how my mom was. She used to kind of tell me a little bit about money and stuff like that, because she always be on me to like, you always got to work hard and everything. But my experience growing up, I think my mom used to give me a little bit of allowance money, and I remember she gave me like I had like this toy box. It was something I had, and I remember putting money in there, and I literally keep it in there for I practiced saving as as a little child growing up, but because of my surroundings and how I grew up and I saw how my family was around finances and how it was important that I had to learn about money because I always have to have like a safety net because I didn't have nobody to, I didn't have that support. Kind of like, because my mom kind of taught us we had to learn how to work hard and save and everything like that. So it really wasn't a discussion growing up. So it was something I definitely had to learn, but I would mention that my mom really did kind of teach me about it, but I just expound on it and just kind of learn more practical ways of doing it, like with saving and everything.
Gotcha. Okay. So when you say your mom taught you about the working hard aspect, what I'm hearing you say, what you learned more from your childhood or from your mom or growing up was how to make the money, but you kind of learned as you got older how to like manage the money that you were making.
Yeah.
Okay. I got you. I'm with you. Okay. So my next thing I want to know, how did you get started in your career? And if you can expound more on what exactly you do, what is your career? And how did you get started in your career field?
Okay, sure. So I'm gonna go back to like when I graduated. So I graduated from Lanier. So after Lanier, I went to Hines Community College. So after high school, I really didn't know what I wanted to study. Really, I was just like, hey, I had my mom like I need to get a job, either go to work or we had to go to school. So there was two things like my mom used to kind of, tell me and my sister growing up once we was done with high school. So I was like, okay, I'm just gonna go to school. And so because I really didn't know what I really wanted to do. So I went on to Hines, stayed there for about 2 years, and then I went on to about 2 or 3 years. Then I had went on to Jackson State. So at Hines, I did business administration. It was just general because I always had a knack for business and just, I just wanted to learn something about it, and I didn't have no other interests outside of that. So once I kind of did an application for Jackson State, once I started finishing up Hines, and Jackson State had a transfer day. It was right around the time I was getting ready to graduate from Hines. Jackson State had a transfer day. So I went to that transfer day. Mind you, my major is still technically business administration. So the transfer day, they had all the professors in there from the different departments of the school. So I had went to the College of Business. And so the two representatives there were like two accounting professors. And so long story short, they kind of talked me into it. But really, when I was in Hines, I did like basic accounting classes. And I actually had a teacher that actually, I literally did well on all her tests, had an A, and she literally wrote on my last exam, she was like, you should be a CPA, which is a certified public accountant. So it was always something that kind of stuck with me. I was like, wow, I never thought about it. So when I had talked to these accounting professors at Jackson State, they was like, oh, you definitely need to go, come into accounting because, business administration, that was like, you're not going to get the job in there. So go into accounting and everything. So, but I always remembered what my teacher had told me when I was at in Hines when she wrote on my paper, because I got an A and she just wrote, you should be a certified public accountant. So I said, okay, cool, I'm gonna do that. And so I transferred to Jackson State with majoring in accounting. So that's kind of how I got into accounting. And I started going through the process and I had to start learning about interviewing, resume, and I had to learn about a whole lot of different things, mind you, that I was never taught in community college. So I had joined the Accounting Society at Jackson State, and through the Accounting Society, it's this organization called NABA, which is the National Association of Black Accountants. So each year they have like these regional conferences where they have it's basically recruitment. So you have a whole lot of the top firms there, like recruiters there, and they make it like a process where you just submit your resume and you can have a whole, you can get interviews on the spot. So it's basically like this big recruiting thing. So I attended there my senior year, because I kind of got either junior or senior. I can't remember. But since it was my first time coming in, I really didn't know, because I struggled a lot with trying to understand interviewing. So I didn't really do, a whole lot of different things. I didn't really get, a job on the spot, because you could get one. And so after that, I just left. Like, I think that was during my senior year. I didn't get one, but I knew, I was like, I got to get something. So I went to graduate school literally like the next 2 months or something, because we had like this thing we can go straight on into it. So I did that, and I had a strategic plan of I was gonna go back to that conference. And I went back to that conference and I redid my resume. I started to, building up, like I just started practicing, my interviewing skills, and I submitted my resume, and I was able to get 3 interviews on the spot going there. So the regional conference is in Atlanta. So I had to go to Atlanta because they had like this regional conference. So I was able to get 3 interviews on the spot, and one of them was JPMorgan. And so JPMorgan had this program, which was called Global Finance Business Management Analyst Program. So it's a 2-year program. It's a rotational program where you get to work in a different department within those 2 years to kind of get accustomed to the bank. And you essentially a full-time employee, and you working as an analyst. So I was able to kind of go through there, but long story short, that's how I was able to get my first position. So I interned with them over the summer. Then I was in finishing up grad school, but I was able to I got a full-time position with them, so I had to move to Texas. So that's kind of essentially how I kind of got started. It wasn't really in accounting. It was more so a little bit of finance, but a little bit of technology work too. So it's kind of a mixture of both. And I kind of got introduced to asset and wealth management, knowing about assets and learning about more so technology and all those things. So did that for 2 years. I worked in the asset wealth management part. And then my last year I worked in the commercial bank. So it was still good, and I kind of got my exposure. I kind of worked in the PPP loan process. I was doing different little things. And it was good exposure. I really started developing my professional skills. And after those 2 years was up, during my second year, because it was just a 2-year rotational program, I had to figure out what I wanted to do next. And so I knew I still wanted to be a CPA. So a CPA is basically, to be one, you have to take this 4-part exam. So I'm not a CPA yet, but it's something I'm still kind of working towards. But I decided that I need to go to an accounting firm. I want to get exposure. I want to get back in, like, I wanted to do tax. And that's how I went to Deloitte. So Deloitte is like one of the top accounting firms in the world. So during that time, I was doing consulting, but it was tax technology consulting. So I wasn't actually doing like the tax preparation. It was more so of I was helping the people who was actually doing tax returns from a technology standpoint. So, but it was pretty cool. It was a lot of work, a lot of hours, and I was like, this is not for me anymore. So I had to go. So I had to go. I finished up a year, and I was in a period where I was like, I really need to reset. And I started to say, I moved back home, and prior to moving back home, I was able to get a position at a local accounting firm here where I'm actually doing taxes. So I'm actually I'm a tax associate for, I'm a tax preparer for construction clients. So construction clients, those are my main clientele. So basically I do their business returns, and then I do their individuals tax return alongside with their family. So just kind of like, so individual and business tax returns for construction clients. So that's kind of essentially where I'm at right now.
Got you.
Yeah. So I
Got
hope
you.
it wasn't too long, but I just had to kind of.
No, thank you for sharing that. And I love your journey. Like, I love because you took me from graduating high school all the way up into now. And I love to see your journey that got you all the way to where you are now. I love the journey. I
Yeah.
love the journey. I love that everything has led you to where you are now. And I feel like it's exactly where you're supposed to be, like exactly where God wants you to be right now at this moment. And it was beautiful to hear. I mean, I loved it. I love the story. I love the journey. I love the journey of it all. So we're discussing budgets and finances. I want to ask you like a basic question because I know there are some people that are going to be listening who have no clue. Like, I want to make sure that I hit everybody. Like, people who do everything and kind of know, and people that are starting from scratch and have no idea. What is a budget? For those who are looking to want to start budgeting to help their kids, like how you said, like with your childhood, like your mom taught you how to make money, but as you got older, you had to learn how to manage that money. What is a budget?
A budget is basically just to kind of, to make it plain. I like to say it's just basically where you telling where your money is going. Like, it shows you where your money is going. It's a way of you organizing your money. That's what it is.
Okay. What app or tool do you recommend to use or get started on budgeting?
Okay. So I would say I personally don't use apps. What I would really say the easiest thing for someone who really not, just start from scratch is to really do a pen and paper. You could do a pen and paper. I do a mixture of both, but I want to kind of so maybe it's best to do pen and paper when you just starting out, just to build the habit. And so you can get like a regular notebook. You can get a composition book. I've seen some people do a composition book. Just create your own. And they do have like small business out there that actually sell like budget planners and stuff. But I kind of essentially just do it on my own. So basically you write your income and then you put all your expenses. So how much you make in a month. You put that in for your income, and then you write out all your expenses. So a little thing that, maybe it helps if I could just show you kind of where, what I do.
Yeah.
So what I'll do for a given month, right? So I take all my income, how much money that I make per month, but I also split per check. So how much I'm making this paycheck, what are my expenses? And so I think even further from that, so it won't get so confusing, you want to list out where you at financially. So it's a lady that I follow that kind of helped me a little bit with a lot of personal finance. And it's her, I think she has a podcast. It's called Break Your Budget. And she has
Break Your Budget.
Yep, Break Your Budget. And she has a lot of good budgeting tips. And she also has budgeting tools on there, like digitally, that, I even myself have purchased and I use. But basically she she talked about creating a financial snapshot. And it really makes sense. So basically you list out all your income, all your expenses, how much debt, list out every debt you have, and how much savings that you have. So once you kind of list all those things, all your expenses, every like per month, even, just list everything down on your sheet of paper to see where you at financially. Then you want to kind of create a goal to see, okay, what is a goal? I love to do like yearly goals, and sometimes I do like monthly goals that leads up to that yearly goal. And so to really make it simple, like for me now, I'm on a debt payoff journey. So my goal now is to pay off all my credit card debt. And so what I essentially do is I have my income, my expenses, and then I have my, savings. How much savings do I have, right? So if you listen to a lot of financial experts that, people call, experts or people who is in the field of finance, they always talk about about having an emergency fund. So, which is very, very important. And so that should be, if you don't have an emergency fund, that should be your number one before you get into like before you start hitting out debt aggressively, investing and all that. Emergency fund should be number one. So emergency fund, for me, I would put up probably about 6 to 12 months of expenses. So you need to how much your expenses is every month and divide it by, I say 3 months. A lot of people say have a 3-month emergency fund or 6 month or 12. So in my case, since I'm single, so I need like a 6-month emergency fund. And now that I work to that extent, now I can pay off debt aggressively in that sense. But I also have to keep in mind that, I'm also back at home. I actually moved back with my mom, so I don't have like rent or anything like that. But I still give her money per month. But I got, just so people won't, what I'm saying, you gotta really look at your situation first to see how much you can how much money. I call it it's called discretionary income. So discretionary income is when how much income you make and minus your expenses, how much money is left over. So that money that's left over, you can make a decision of, okay, am I doing my emergency fund right now, or did I complete that? Or could I add this to a debt, basically? So that's kind of a little bit basic. And I think understanding where you at financially first, and then once you get where you are financially first, then you go into, okay, how much is my monthly income? Divide it by 2 to see, making sure that this is how much your paycheck is every time you get paid, and, list out your expenses. You kind of got to get a little creative, but that's kind of where the basic is. I don't want to confuse somebody, but that's kind of like basic what budgeting is, and where I feel like if you starting out, that's where you need to figure out where you at financially, how much income you bring in per month and per paycheck, and then your expenses, and then figure out, okay, do you have an emergency fund? If you don't, then that needs to be your primary goal. Then if you do, then you need to go towards that. See, then if you done with the emergency fund, you done with that, then you can start going to the next level, which could be increasing, my, retirement, or short-term savings. You can put more money towards that, but you don't want to exhaust yourself trying to do everything at once. You got to pick one thing at a time. So that's kind of a little bit, hopefully that that makes sense a little bit. So
yeah, that was good. That helped me. Thank you. Okay. We're sticking on the topic of budget.
Mm-hmm.
How can consistency and motivation be maintained with a budget? because I've heard this talked about a lot, especially sometimes when you bring about the conversation of a budget, which I feel like a budget is needed. I personally do. I feel like what you said earlier, like you need to be able to tell your money where to go, because if you don't tell your money where to go, your money won't tell you. I mean, it's just either or. It's one way or the other. But how can consistency and motivation be maintained with a budget? Because a lot of people, usually the people who don't want to do a budget, it's not just because they don't want to manage their money or they don't want to tell their money where to go. It's because they don't want to be constrained, or they don't want to be able to not do the things that they want to do. How can you keep that consistency and that motivation for that person that's doing the budget but not necessarily excited about it? Like, how can you keep somebody motivated to do a budget and stay consistent with it?
I would say they would need to look at their goal. That's number one. What I do, I always look at my goal. Where do you want to be? Like if you did a year goal, where do you really want to be at that place? Let's say pay off, all your credit card debt, or or did you give up along the way? So I say a good motivating factor is to also look at your goal, but also to keep in mind, we kind of nearing a recession. You also got to think about, the times where it was really tough, where they say, you lost money or you did something, you don't want to go back to that place. And so that's also motivating. A lot of people, that's also don't want to go back to that place. So that's another thing too. And those are like literally the best answers I could really give for that, because I remember times where I think back times where I may have lost some money or I couldn't do something because I was doing paycheck to paycheck, and I remember those times, and I never wanted to be in that kind of situation again. And so that's definitely motivating, especially because you don't want to end up in the same position that you once were in.
Yeah, that's real. You talking. You talking. Let me ask you this, because I want to now bring the kids and the family, because I asked you about your childhood growing up. Mm-hmm. How early should parents teach their children about budgeting and saving money, discussing finances, etc.? And where should we begin so that it is not overwhelming?
I would say to teach kids when I was younger, maybe I was probably about maybe 9 or 10. I would say I don't think it could be in their middle school kind of age. I feel like when they able to kind of comprehend a little bit more of things, maybe you can kind of teach them a little bit of basic things of giving them an allowance and saying like, okay, we go to this store, teaching them the value of, $1 and kind of, it may have to be bit by bit because you don't want to like how you said, overwhelm them. But maybe it could be as simple as going, to the store and giving them, telling them to use the money, the allowance and stuff, and tell them to, get what you want and kind of teach them, examine them, about the cost of certain things. And, you can't get this one. Maybe you can get this right now. You can't get that. Just kind of bit by bit, because, they still a child and everything like that. But maybe that's just a step, because you don't want to start introducing them to taxes and you like, oh, you got to pay tax. You don't want to do all that. You don't want to do all that. But I think that's definitely something I feel like school definitely is not going to teach them that. And maybe there's just something a parent have to be creative and just doing their own, I call it their own curriculum, to kind of teaching their kids about, money, giving them an allowance and, teaching them about, personal finance, budgeting and letting them create their own little budget, what stuff kind of go just bit by bit, maybe not, let them understand just the basics of like a dollar and, money management, just like little basic things, so they can kind of build their understanding. And if they grow their discipline, then they'll teach them, they'll stay with them. Then you kind of go to the next step a little bit. That's kind of like the hopefully that wasn't kind of all over the place, but it's just like bit by bit.
Yeah, I get it. In research that I've done, from books I've read or podcasts that I've listened to, most people have different views of money. What do you think helps set us up for success in relationships if we don't view finances the same way? Like if you're in a relationship or marriage and you guys have completely different views around finances and budgeting and taxes or whatever, anything around money, what do you think could help set us up for success? Because I'm sure you work with couples doing taxes and stuff. What do you think would help set us up for success when we don't view it the same way?
I would start off saying this. Finance, I feel like, is a very important topic. And especially in a relationship. And I feel like both parties, have to be on a common ground. Because if one person is saying this and another person don't believe in that and they do something else, your money is going around the place. And so it becomes disorganized, and that could cause a strain. It could probably really cause a strain. But I would say maybe get a little creative with it. Gotta meet, I guess, on, compromise and kind of see, maybe taking a date night or something to kind of like talk about, okay, we're gonna have dinner and whatnot, and then let's talk about, what's some money goal that we have. Like I mentioned, like where we are financially, can we do improve our finances in a sense? So I think compromise, both parties have to meet on it. But I also think maybe it is a conversation because, one person definitely needs to both parties really need to meet on a common ground. Because if you guys the same level, it could be more so like we could use one income to pay off debt and the other one to save and invest. You can get creative with it. But if both parties don't, match like that, it can really cause a, rift in the relationship. I think that is a must, like a good conversation to have to see like where do we see ourselves in the next year or two from a financial standpoint, So that's kind of like, I think really having a conversation, a meeting. I hate to say I don't want to call it like a financial, but it is, to really see, to really have that serious talk and say like, what can we do to improve, our financial situation? Where, do we both, where we are financially, how much debt do we have? How much do we have an emergency fund? Your whole family dynamic. What can you do to improve, you guys' financial situation, creating sinking funds, which is like saving for upcoming expenses for, especially if you had kids, back to school sinking fund, kids' clothes, organizing the money and say like, okay, let's come to a agreement on one thing. Then we can kind of, tap into other things. Maybe you guys do a vacation per year. You got to save up for that. Vacation. It's certain things that has to be done to get to that main goal. So if both is not on the same page, that is a conversation that definitely has to be had.
Amen. That was good. That was good, Bree. Because what I'm hearing you say is we need to have a conversation. Even though we view money or finances differently, our goal, we have a common goal. Our goal is the same.
Mm-hmm.
Our views are different, which means the way we get to the goal may be different.
Mm-hmm.
We may do things differently, but our goal is the same. So we need to communicate and have a conversation about how we're going to compromise to get to this goal.
Yeah, exactly.
I'm with you. That's good. I'm with you. I'm with you. I'm with you. Because we can get on the same page because we know that we are basically on the same team because our goal is the same. We want to pay off debt. We want to go on this vacation. We want to get whatever the kids need. Whatever that goal is, our goal is the same. But because we view money different, we may have different ways of going about it, of getting there. But if we talk about it and compromise and have a conversation about it, we realize that our goal is the same. You don't want something different than I do. We want the same thing. And that's how we can compromise because we realize that we want the same thing. We're on the same team. Okie dokie. Good stuff, Bree. Good stuff. Okay, now the next question. What's something that you personally learned about finances later in your adult years that you wish you would have known sooner?
I wish I would have built an emergency fund sooner in my early 20s. Rather than learning about it a little later. See, saving was already kind of part of my journey, but not the emergency fund aspect of it. And I think if I would have learned early on, especially when I was like doing my time at Jackson State, just start with the little money that I had, maybe, I could have been better off like I'll say about 3 years ago. But that was one thing. That's one thing.
That's a good one. That is a good one. This is my last question before we close out. If you could offer 3 pieces of advice, so just give you a moment to think about it. If you could offer 3 pieces of advice to help someone who may be struggling in the area of finances or just unsure where to start, what would you say?
3 pieces of advice.
And it could be as simple or as basic, or you can expound, whatever. If you could just give them 3 pieces of advice, something that you may have wished you would have heard coming into finances, starting off as an adult, going out into the world, what's 3 pieces of advice you would offer to them?
Okay. One, I would say, if you have a job and you don't understand anything about finance or anything, you still kind of learning, start just, saving what you can. That's number one. I'll say save what you can. Number 2, I would say, is to learn how to budget. Learn how to budget. We in a day and age where it's a countless of, tutorials and a lot of things, especially on YouTube, where they teaching about budgeting and stuff. So I don't think it's an excuse to not know because you have a whole lot of free content out there about it. But I would say it can get overwhelming because, listening to too many people, and that can also be a strain for you because you can't really listen to everybody because everybody, they say one thing and somebody teach you something. So it is a part of you doing your own research on it. But saving what you can, learning how to budget, and the third piece of advice, I would say, do your research. That's what I do, your own personal research. Do your own personal research.
Got it. Oh, Bree, this was so good. Thank you so much for your wisdom on budgets and finances. I really, really do appreciate you agreeing to come on and talk with me today. This has been awesome. Thank you so much. Thank you so much.
Well, thank you. I'm glad I was able to be on the show, and I'm hopefully somebody was able to get something. I'm hoping I'm not like too much all around the place, but I'm trying to.
Oh no, ma'am. You have definitely dropped some gems today, honey. You have definitely dropped some gems. If you guys have any questions regarding anything that we discussed today, you can reach Breonna via email. Breonna, if you would like to share your email for the girls to reach you.
Yeah, sure. So it's Breonna Dear. So it's BreonnaDear@gmail.com. I also want to mention back to those 3 advices. I would kind of want to change it. I want to say learn budgeting, then then saving, then doing your own research. I had to mention that because
Yes, ma'am. Again, great advice. Seriously, great advice. Thank you so much for joining me again on today. You have given some great advice and some great gems on today. Thank you to my listeners. I hope you guys have enjoyed today's episode with our amazing guest, Ms. Breonna Dear. Remember, I love you, but God loves you so much more. And today was our season finale for season 8. And we will see you guys in a couple of months for season 9. All right, guys. Bye.
I hope you guys have enjoyed. Follow me on Facebook at Demo with Mo. If you have any questions you would like answered here live on my podcast, email them to me at demowithmo@gmail.com. That's DEMOWITHMO@gmail.com.